welcome to another episode of Thrive Like a Parent podcast. Today, I'm actually really excited because I don't get to do this often. And so Brittany is actually here with me in my office / podcast studio / makeshift, whatever it needs to be for the day. But I have known Brittany for five
at least.
5 years?
Yeah,
Six, maybe?
Yeah, 2020 was 5 years ago.
Yes. And I think I started taking your class in 18.
Yes.
Holy shit. Yes. So I came to Austin and I was very lost and alone. And I was like, I knew I wanted to get back into fitness. And I absolutely fell in love with Brittany for multiple reasons that we will talk about today. And it'll naturally just come out. But Brittany is the quintessential do it all, but do it all in a really phenomenal way. And I'm going to let her share with you a little bit about herself and her story. But I'm so excited she's here because I am such a huge supporter and fan of Brittany's work. And there's so many fitness individuals out there. There's so many methods. There's so many, there is so many on-demand things at this point. But by far, if I were to push anyone's stuff, it would be Brittany's because she knows what she's doing. She cares a lot about the body. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but Brittany has also trained me when I was thinking about teaching barre, or I almost started teaching barre and then it kind of all blew up.
Life happens.
Yeah, but then it all blew up. So Brittany, tell everyone about yourself. And I like for you to kind of share a little bit about like how you got to this place, and you can start as far back as you want.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
So career-wise, my beginnings were in classical ballet. I dropped out of college actually to move to New York City to pursue a professional dance career.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. I lived in New York for a decade. I had multiple lives in New York, but the first chapter was performing. I struggled immensely with chronic injuries throughout my entire career, and it eventually ended my career. So that also lends to, in the future, weave to why I have such compassion for modifications in movement and why my experience with working with so many doctors throughout the lifetime of my personal career, even rehabbing post-career, really influences how my virtual studio, the experience you get in it with the classes and the modifications. So when I finally blew out my ankle for the last time, I was in a big transition place, had no idea what I wanted to do. I ended up going back to college because I was like, where do I start? Okay, I'll start with a business degree because that would be my number one recommendation. If you don't know what to do, get a degree in business. And I did English just for my heart, which now I do so much writing for my business. I never could have imagined that. So at the time I was back in school, I started working at Lululemon, and someone at Lululemon invited me to a barre class. And at that point, people have been like, oh, maybe personal train. I had a background in classical Pilates world. I trained at Joseph Pilates Studio throughout my whole performing career, but it just, my heart and soul wasn't in Pilates. And I went to that first barre class, and the musical, like how dynamic and exciting and upbeat and energetic, I was like, what is this? I love this. And classes in New York City were, even, what has it been, like almost 15 years, were so expensive. And I was a student and I was working. So I was like, maybe I'll just audition to teach this. A lot of the instructors were professional, ex-professional dancers or current dancers on Broadway, kind of supplementing their finances that way. So I started teaching part-time, finishing my degree. And then as I got closer and closer to graduation, I was like, I don't want to work in an office. I've always been a performer. How's this all going to work out? And at the time, the company I was at was one of the biggest names in fitness, and they were starting to really expand. So I got this amazing opportunity to both be client facing on the floor, teaching members of the studio, but then also starting to manage studios, which ended up managing instructors at multiple studios. So really focusing on instructor development. And it was an incredible opportunity to use both my business degree, but then also my love for performing and teaching. And that was another also really important thing that helped me develop my craft when it comes to actually teaching with a lot of excellence, because one of the best ways to become more excellent at what you do is to teach others how to do what you do.
Totally. 1,000%.
Yes. So I had an amazing career in New York, met my husband during that time of during the big transition time. We dated for almost 7 years. And when we got engaged, we were like, okay, where do we see ourselves raising a family? And I'm originally from Texas, and I just couldn't see myself in the like Manhattan hustle with the family, even though my heart kind of still lives in New York. But I knew I'm really close to my family. So I was like, okay, there's going to be no easy time to leave New York. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and do it. And I was like, okay, like I'd never lived in Austin. It was just a gut feeling that my parents are in San Antonio. I had a sister in Dallas. All right, this is the gut feeling. Let's just go for it. So we moved to Austin. And at that point, I really didn't know how my career was going to translate to the Austin market, because what I didn't really exist in Austin yet. Fast forward a few years. At that point, I started teach for a local studio, and that's where our paths crossed, started doing instructor development there. Then I got pregnant, and I was due May 2020. That's where the next big shift, motherhood would have been a shift as it was, but with the pandemic and just that dynamic, it really, I think, compounded my experience and the intensity of my experience and how I kind of shift my career forward. So I was teaching. Did you ever teach the classes on Zoom that I was teaching when I was super pregnant?
I think I probably came to one or two. Yeah. But I didn't teach.
Okay. So I was teaching up until 3 days before I gave birth on Zoom. And
I remember
hundreds of people were signing up for these classes. And at the time I was like, okay, I'm so pregnant, but like, I just loved teaching, and it was actually a good distraction with everything was going on. And my husband is actually the one, I never envisioned myself having like an app or even my own thing, really. I'd always taught for other companies and kind of refine what they were doing and coming along other people to kind of refine and coach other instructors and etc. So my husband was the one. He was like, okay, there's something here. Meanwhile, I'm like literally about to go into labor. Like we're talking like days out from giving birth. You should really think about, what this means. So fast forward, have Sienna, May 2020, but he had planted the seed in my mind. And I was always like, I always knew I wanted to work. Like I knew that about myself, even in motherhood, like part of my identity. And I love to work and I love what I do. I just didn't know how that was going to work. But I also knew that I wouldn't be like in studio. Like I'd always been in studio teaching so many classes. And I know for motherhood, for me, that wasn't kind of like the work-life balance that I wanted. So I was like, okay, I guess we're going for my own thing. Yeah. And the name Britsbarre Virtual Studio actually just came from my Instagram. People, your Britsbarre, that had become so much of what and who people identify, one of my identities. So I was like, okay, Britsbarre Virtual Studio. And I started all the business formation about 3 months postpartum. I have feelings and thoughts about like that timeline now in retrospect. And I'm sure we'll get into kind of like nervous system regulation and my journey with regulation and how I had zero tools at the time. And that was a big part of how I feel like I'm thriving now, when I was definitely hit a hard wall. But I launched the website version a year postpartum. So the same month as my daughter's birthday. It just kind of worked out that way. It wasn't my original plan. It was a little delayed. And then 2 years ago, I launched the app. And then I can get into a little bit. I don't know if you want to do any follow-up questions, but I can keep talking.
Okay. Well, my first follow-up question is, when you dropped out of college, how did your parents take that?
Now that I am a parent, the amount of credit I give my parents for how much they really listened to me.
Wow.
They really, it was not easy. I mean, I was on scholarship, academic and dance, but I think they also realized it didn't really make sense for me to be getting a dance degree when I was ready to go perform and
be a dancer.
There's a really, and that path does work for some people, but it is a short timeline. And I just knew I needed to do it.
And the window for dancers is small. If you have it, you have it. Unfortunately, age is against us if you want to go into that. And I was just curious. So it sounds like they were supportive.
I think they were a little bit prepped. I'm the oldest of 4. So I was kind of the child I did some homeschooling. So my mom homeschooled us from 3rd to 8th, but in 2nd grade, I came home one day I was in school. I said, I want to stay home with the baby because my little brother was born. And my mom just figured out how to homeschool us. And it's some of the best education I've had. I've been in private school. I've been in public school. I've been in private university. I've been in public university. I ended up finishing my degree at public university in New York, but I was at Butler, which is a private university. the one I dropped out of. So that was kind of like the first, I guess, showing of my personality.
Yeah.
And then when I homeschooled, and then I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back to school. So that I went back to the private school that I had been in before in ninth grade. And my parents will still joke about it because after ninth grade, I asked my dad out to the Cheesecake Factory. And I was like, okay, I have something to talk to you about. I had like a pro-con list of why I needed to go to public school. And they let me go to public school. So maybe they weren't so surprised when after sophomore year of college, I was like, okay, here's my list of pros of why I need to like move to New York City and pursue this. So they've really been behind me every step of the way, even though I know that maybe wasn't their greatest
their checklist.
Like, I imagine that had to have been really scary, but they gave me a lot of freedom, but also a lot of security and like healthy boundaries. Even now I'm like, I don't know if I could do it they dropped me off in my apartment and they left in New York City. And I didn't know, I knew one girl that had.
That's wild.
And just created a whole new life there.
It sounds like from that story that your parents were actually truly supportive and really like listened to your wants, honestly, throughout your life. Like if you were like, I think I want to homeschool, and they listened to that. I think I want to go to public school, and they listened to that. It's not an easy, I mean, you get it now that you're a parent, and I do too, but it's not an easy thing to do when you like see this path and it's maybe even an unknown for your child. And you're like, I don't know if that's such the best path for you, but like, to relinquish that control and say like, okay, if you know what you want, then we're going to support you and go for it. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I feel very fortunate that I've had such incredible role models of how to parent in such a wise and loving way, and providing structure and boundaries, but also the right kind of freedom so that all four of us have been able to really thrive.
So Brittany jumped over a little bit of the story because she got to like the most important parts for Brittany and Brittany's career. But there's one part of the story that I was immersed in very much so, which is when Brittany was involved in this local fitness, what do we call it? Studio, excuse me. My gosh, my brain. And as soon as I found it, I was like, holy shit, this is magic. Like I literally was like, this is the thing that doesn't exist. And I'm going to toot your horn here. I don't think that this studio would have been this studio without Brittany and Brittany's leadership and Brittany's training. And when you are correct, I really think it was 2018. I had sold my business in New Orleans. I moved here to Austin. The first time I ever came to Austin was literally when I like drove up with the kids. And I was like, we're here. I don't know where we are, but we're here.
Kind of similar for me too. Yeah.
Wild. Yeah. Wild. And I would drop the kids off at school every morning. And I was like, okay, what do I do? Like, I think I want to get back into fitness. And there wasn't really anything for me in New Orleans that I loved. And as soon as I found this place and as soon as I found you, I was like addicted. I was like, this is it. And I would say that it truly started my transformation into like health and wellness for myself in terms of after pregnancy, after babies. And I fell in love with it so much that I was looking for the next career path. Like I was looking for like, what's my next thing? Because I had done the pediatrics and I didn't know if I could do more pediatrics after having my own pediatric kids. And I was like, I think I want to go back to my roots of dance. And you provided such an incredible experience of training and teaching and explaining the body, as well as like coaching of, I had a harder time than I actually thought I would. I was like, I've got a dance background. Like this will be easy, but it wasn't, because I was like 5, 6, 7, 8. And you're like, no, it's like 1, 2, 3 or 3, 2, 1 or whatever. And I was like, I can't say it. Like it's not coming out of me. And so I learned so much from Brittany, but I knew even if I didn't end up teaching, because that was a difficult decision for me, whether to like apply for it or not. And I finally decided, you know what, like even if I do it, I can always stop, or I can always say like, I don't think this is right for me anymore. But it was like the first step for me in kind of forging my own path. And I feel like we were both going through really, really big life changes through that. And I loved our group. But I think my grandmother passed during that time. Your beloved cat was not doing well at the time. and you shared with us that you were pregnant. And so it was like a lot of like shifts and changes that were happening. And I went on to go do different things and you went on to go do different things, but you were such a crucial statue or entity, or like you were a vital part of that place, that studio, that when you did choose to go out on your own, it was like a big, like, yes, like she finally did it. Like she finally did it, because you have such a gift and something so special, especially like you're saying, the modifications, especially body awareness, especially alignment, as well as it's a kick-ass hard workout. Like it is not just like okay, we did you push hard. What do you think led you to get to the place where you're like, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to like go for it.
Yeah. So I kind of baby stepped it. So I didn't leave that local studio until about a year ago.
I know.
And it was really hard for me to let go of that local community and how special that place is. But I just had to follow my gut. Like I knew, especially as I've gotten deeper into motherhood, as I was learning to actually take care of myself, and was finally in a place where I could focus on not just running my business with excellence, but starting to grow my business to bring more brand awareness. I had to sometimes you have to let go of good things.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like the gut feeling where I'm like, oh, I think Austin's where we belong. You know, like that feeling where you're just like, know the next step. And sometimes it's a scary thing, but you know what you need to do. So that's kind of the best I can describe of like kind of taking a step away from being in person in studio. And that's the root of what my career was, to building something more virtual and global.
Yeah. And I would say I agree with that. Like I kind of watched as you took baby steps. Like you slowly stepped away from the in-person classes, and the in-person classes that you did have were full and waitlisted. Like we would all have to sign up like weeks in advance to make sure we got in, because it's such a great workout, right? Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how that was launching a business and motherhood.
Now we get to
at the same time, right?
Yes. My goodness, it was a lot. As I kind of mentioned before, I was not set up with the tools to really thrive because I didn't know what nervous system regulation really was.
Yeah.
You were the only person in my life that I'd really heard talk about it. So I would see like the pieces of information you were putting out on Instagram. So I had an awareness that it was a thing, but I didn't really understand how it applied to me.
Sure.
I don't know if you've heard that before.
I haven't.
Okay. So I just have kind of like an achiever personality.
Yes, you do. So we have that in common. Yes, we do.
So I can really push hard. And I actually did not know that I was not okay until I hit a wall. I mean, like so hard that my body told me I wasn't okay. So it's not like I was showing up in life and in Instagram, like putting on a front. Like I really was I was pushing so hard. I mentally was so structured with everything. Yeah. It wasn't until like my body told me that like, you can't continue like this. So that first year where I created and launched the business, I had no childcare, and we were it was 2021. So it was a really also weird, isolated type of world. And my husband had gone back to like a new career at that time that he started the same week that Sienna was born. So the timing of how everything kind of laid out was really not ideal. And I also didn't have a built-in like motherhood tribe. Yeah. I've formed those relationships since. So I was really going into it isolated, not supported, and just also going after building a business, which is hard if you have all those things. You know, if you have everything in place, it's still hard to build a business. So I'm like, where am I going with this?
I want to know, once you hit that wall, how did you recognize you hit the wall, and what steps did you take to not be at that wall anymore? Because, you know, when you're starting a virtual studio, you can't just put one workout and be like, see you later. Of course you want variety and classes and you were filming like multiple classes, and I know you still film classes now, right? To like keep pushing and keep varying it up, and you want to make sure that there's a library, right? Yeah. So how did you go from hitting the wall to like finding, I hate the word balance, but like finding,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
right?
Yeah. So my life had gotten so regimented, and that this also happens in new motherhood, right? Because I was also breastfeeding on demand. So you're on that 2-3 hour schedule. I didn't have respite other than my husband and he was amazing. Like I couldn't have done any of this without him. So, but we were like bouncing back and forth just that first year.
Yeah.
I was working all weekend because he was working during the day, during the week, and I was working in the night. And I have a highly sensitive child, which I've learned kind of that language now.
Sure.
They didn't sleep. That was not content to ever sit.
Yep.
Ever. So I also, and as she grew, she was also a daredevil. So like I couldn't keep my eye off of her because she would run into the street. She'd jump off the island. She was actually like unsafe in those initial years. So really, I became very hyper vigilant. So all this language, I didn't know what any of this meant until the day I remember, like the day I was feeling weird. You know, I was feeling like kind of jittery in my body. There was things I was starting to notice about myself, but there was one day where I view as like the day I hit the wall. Yeah. And this is when I knew it was a real problem because I was in the safest place that I feel, which is home, surrounded by like my closest family members who are my safest people. And I had like an anxiety attack. And I was not an anxious person. I was a high stress person. I was a person that dealt, and still I have to be very aware of my perfectionism, but that was all very performance based. So I didn't have a background with anxiety. And I say this because it might be helpful to someone else who maybe, you know, they think, well, I don't have a background with anxiety or whatnot, but like a lot can shift as you enter a role in motherhood and with your hormones. And so I'm having this like meltdown in my head. I'm like, what's happening?
Sure.
Like, I'm literally freaking out and I don't know why. So I start Googling as
Google's
we do,
our best friend.
as we should not do. ChatGPT was not a thing yet.
No, it was not a thing.
I'm like, postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression. I'm like, this is not, none of these symptoms are, these aren't me. Like I was high functioning. I was highly motivated. But all of a sudden I was like freaking out all the time. Like I almost like felt like my hands were shaking. I was not safe in my body. And finally, thankfully, I said something to my sister and she had really experienced nervous system like being dysregulated. And she was like, this is what's happening to you. And she was able to break it down. Like your nervous system is dysregulated. Your body doesn't feel safe. Here are the things you can start to do to make yourself feel safe in your body again. And I'm sure you can connect with this as a dancer. The physicality of life really impacts our nervous system, maybe even more than some other people. Like we all, the way our nervous system regulates is so different for different people. But I've always had that outlet with dance that's different than fitness. And then I was thrown into this motherhood environment where I had created this hyper structured where like if I was 5 minutes off, I'm like to the nurse, to the nap, then I got to film. Like it was so intense. And I was also breastfeeding for 2 years. And at this point, this is about 2 years after I had my daughter, where everything started to unravel for me, where I was like, I'm really not okay. And that's when I started really understand more the things you had said. Like, if you feel like you're crazy, in the past, I was like, what does she mean by that? That doesn't make any sense to me. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh my God, am I going crazy? Totally. It was so bad. I didn't feel safe being alone with my daughter at home. I didn't feel safe driving her because in my head, I was like, what if I have a panic attack? Yeah. It's not rational because someone will be like, oh, well, then you would pull over or you would call someone but when you're in the midst of your nervous system being completely shut down,
your brain's not online. Like it's trying to survive. It's thinking like there's a fire in your house and you need to stop, drop.
I mean, my hypervigilance was like,
or you're snapping at your kids, or you're snapping at your partner, or you don't want to be touched, or it's like you're just like on fire.
Yeah, I was seeing danger.
Yes.
Like life felt so dangerous to me, and then compounded by the fact that my daughter, spicy, spunky, sweet as she is, well, she made it tough for me. She was definitely not a kid that was going to just stay by my side. Right.
Yes.
So that compounded me just being like, is she going to get hurt? You know? So that's when I really, with the help of my sister, started my journey with nervous system regulation. And that's where it's like, you have to choose that you're going to show up for yourself and like change the way you're living your life. So I mean, lots of things I could say about that, but it took me a lot of time. And I think that when I was really in the thick of it, like hearing little things like, oh, do XYZ and like a few months you'll feel better, were super unhelpful to me because I mean, I was like 6 months into my nervous system regulation journey and I was still like, I'm not okay.
So I have so many things to say based on what you said. And I'm a crier and an emotional feeler, so I'm going to try not to cry during this. But I think you and I over the years have connected in so many ways on like that perfectionism or understanding. And I was never a professional dancer, but just like what dance or being in the world of dance or having dance in your life in the ways that we have both had it in our lives, it is 1000% about perfectionism. And it is not just perfectionism in the way of I need to point my toe a little bit harder, or I need to lift my leg a little bit higher, but I need to do that in the way that's appropriate for the rest of my body. And while I'm lifting my leg, my shoulders need to be down. And while my shoulders are down, my arms actually also need to be up. And I need to look as if I'm not straining at all, right? Yeah. And then on top of that, you're wearing an effing leotard and tights, right? And like showing everyone your crotch at the same time because your leg is in the air, right? So like I grew up and I loved it. Like I craved it. I enjoyed learning and growing and pushing the boundaries and seeing how far I could go with my dancing. But I think there's two things. Number one is I recognize that I used to wear my clothes extremely, extremely tight. And I think it's because we were wearing leotards and we were wearing stockings, and that gives you the deep pressure. Like that gave us the sensory regulation into our body that we didn't even recognize at the time it was giving us, because back then I didn't know what I knew about the nervous system back then, right? Yeah. And then on top of that, I could not agree with you more. And I've said it multiple times within my life, but not really understanding why until I did this work on myself many years ago. But we didn't talk about feelings in my home growing up. We didn't have deep dives and get vulnerable the way that our generation is now. And so dance for me was that outlet of expression, feeling my feelings, and 1000% regulating my body. Like I was naturally doing it. And when it's all stripped away and you then become a working human, right? So for many years, I didn't have dance in my life from like graduate school, probably until I came here and started doing bar. And then throw kids in the mix. There is no time. There is no time to go to a dance class or there just isn't. And so your natural regulator is then stripped away from you on top of the breastfeeding and the jumping off of, a trampoline head first into, and getting a pool and being like, oh my gosh, my daughter's going to like dive first into the pool when I'm not looking. Like it just compounds. And I could keep going with the explanations and examples and over and over and over. And so it's no wonder that you have a story of hitting a wall. And I for sure hit a wall. And I say this every now and then that like, do you ever feel like you wake up in the morning and you're like, I can't believe this is my life. How did I get here? I didn't think this would be my life. Like I didn't know this is what it would be. Like I didn't expect it to be this hard or like this. And I think then stepping into that wall and then doing something about it is not everyone's path, right? That's why I do what I do, is because most individuals ignore the lights on their dashboard in their car that's saying you need to go like get your oil changed and like your engine's not doing so hot and your brakes are like kind of rubbing together. I don't even know if that's rubbing. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know why I said that, but
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Your brakes aren't doing so well. How about that? Right? But like check engine.
And like Western culture though, really pushes the push through.
Keep going. And
unless it's you
like immediacy.
Yes. Fast paced. More is better and
more is better.
And more is better.
And not to mention, to live life these days, it is completely different from when our parents were growing up. Or when we were growing up, with our parents. Like you could have a one income household and be completely fine.
Right.
There are very few of us who can And yes, there are multiple people who have one income households and all the things, but like the cost of living just in general to provide the life for our children is completely different than when our parents were growing up or raising us. So tell us about what worked for you. Tell us about your journey of then figuring out how to truly take care of yourself, but still build the business of your dreams.
Yeah. I mean, my sister, we are 2.5 years apart. I mean, the love and respect that I have for her is like,
is this Brooke?
This is Brianna. So I'm the oldest of 4. Brianna is the one closest in age to me. And then Brett is my brother. And then Brooke is the youngest. And Brooke also has her own business and works with Britsbarre. I like to say anything that is really beautiful aesthetically. She's like a branding visuals master. And we're 11 years apart. So it's been really fun to be able to work together. And off topic, but also relevant. I like to bring this up with my friends because I also think there's a lot of pressure age gap with children. And I just like to encourage people, like, same parents, 4 kids, huge gaps. I am as close with every single one of my siblings, regardless of age gap. And that's why I haven't felt pressure for like a second. We do want to hopefully have another child, but like I really had to choose my own mental health. I think a lot of times there's that pressure. I want my kids to be close. They need to be X years apart. I just see it so often. And my encouragement to my friends that I tell them all the time, and just whoever, if I ever hear someone bring it up, just to encourage them, like, you and your spouse determine your family culture. Because I saw that my parents did this. And because of the family culture they created, we are all close. And that kind of segues to like, while I want another kid, I had to put that on pause for my mental health because I wouldn't have been able to show up in an empowered and present and grounded way over the past
yourself, for Sienna, for your husband, for your business, for all of it,
for everything,
for the new kiddo, like none of it.
Yeah. And we all know about mom guilt and, you know, it for whatever reason in our brains, taking time to take care of ourselves can feel selfish, but it's actually the most selfless thing you can do is to take care of yourself because that's what your kids need the most. Your kids need you to take care of yourself so that when you show up for them, you are grounded, you are patient, you are able to like speak truth into them in a way that's not being influenced by your own like frenetic dysregulation, right?
And be present and happy. Like they want to see you happy.
Right.
So if you're not, then you're just grumpy and snapping at them.
And that time trade-off is hard. That's something I had to, you know, really
grapple with.
Yes. Because when you're taking care of yourself, like in the beginning of my regulation journey, it really kind of felt like a full-time job. I was still working, but it felt like a lot of work. And that was also hard for me because I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to be relaxing and chilling out, but I'm working really hard to relax. And for me, that was like the beginning of that journey because you're doing all these things to like help yourself like chill out. But you still have to do those things.
It's not in the beginning. It's not hard because your brain is so patterned to go, or the whatever your brain has, or however your brain has functioned for decades, right? You're literally asking your brain, you're like, we're going to do things differently. And that is effort. It is effort to do something different than your brain is used to doing.
So my sister really laid out a lot of strategies for me. And it was really helpful because she knows me better than anyone. Like we grew up together and she had actually been through extensive therapy with someone with your credentials. And she was like, I am not replacing therapy for you. I'm like, I promise if I don't start to get better, I will go to therapy. And I mean, for me, in my case, like all the strategies she laid out really worked for me. And if I wouldn't have seen progress, I would have sought help. And I do think that's important to continue to like destigmatizing. Like if someone doesn't have someone like my sister in their life, like they need to come to you. Like I don't think these are issues that can be solved through Instagram suggestions or
it's even a
book or like you really the tailored when I would be like, I'm thinking this, I'm feeling this. And she would be like, okay, you know, this is what I'm hearing and this is what I would recommend. And a lot of it was very physical for me in terms of like, the 5 senses, getting your feet in the grass, getting your sunlight on your eyes, social media boundaries. Oh my goodness. Like get the phone off the nightstand. Alcohol. I don't really drink it anymore.
Same.
I'm like, I tell people, I'm like, I'm surprised as you are.
I'm surprised myself. Like,
Not because like I drank like crazy, but I drank like, I would say like the American standard of what's socially
I'll
acceptable.
have a glass of wine with dinner.
Like I love pairing my wines, you know, like I love doing all the things, the romance. That's the thing about rock bottom. I was to the point, and I think for many of us, we have to get to that point. I was like, whatever it takes, I don't want to live like this.
Yes.
So I like everything I could to help my body feel safe again.
Yes.
I did those things. Legs up the wall, walking. I mean, walking was like therapy for me.
Same.
Walking in silence and doing less. I think it's really easy to be like, well, I have to do all these things. I really had to look at my life and be like, what things do I have to do? And some things are good things that you have to let go of for a while. I really had to prioritize, like in the morning, even if it meant up getting up earlier, slipping out for that 10-minute walk to ground myself. Because in the early days, I was waking up every morning not okay. In a full-on panic. I was like, I don't even know why my life. And that was another thing that was hard for me. When you have a lot of blessing in your life, I also felt really guilty and ashamed because I couldn't point to anything where I was like, you know, this is bad in my life. And I think there was a lot of shame around that because I'm like, why am I not doing okay? I have like a healthy child, a husband that loves me, a home, like I get to do what I love for a living, but I was just not okay. And it took a lot of consistency with all of those practices. And I've heard you talk about this before too. Like when you start to slow down, like your body can actually freak out more and you just have to like move.
You have to keep trusting.
You have to like move through the process. And my sister would often tell me like, this is not forever.
No.
When you're in it, you're like, oh my,
it's miserable. In the beginning, it's miserable.
It's so hard. And I was just like, I really felt like I was going crazy. And I was like, I missed that girl that I was before that was just didn't have to work so hard to just be a baseline.
Yes.
And I would say even now in motherhood, I do have to work harder.
Yeah.
I'm not that girl anymore. You know, there's something about children, that deep love that you give and give so much.
But you also don't have the natural time to take care of yourself. I remember before I had kids, Jonathan and our bodies would just wake up and we would go get coffee or go get breakfast. And then we would go on a walk and then we'd be like, I'm tired. And we would just like lay in bed. Like, yes, there's more rest. There's more rest. There's more things and people and humans and little, people like needing you. It's just the obligation is much higher. And then adding on a business, right? Like it's another baby, if you will, right?
Yeah. You have to learn to say no.
You have to learn to
say no a lot.
Yes.
Especially in the beginning of your regulation journey.
Yes.
But then even like as it continues, like in the past,
you're right.
2 years, a year and a half, I felt like, okay, like I have space now.
Yeah.
But what am I going to say yes to? I can maintain a sense of groundedness and thriving.
You have to protect it. Like you can feel the capacity coming back, but like it's almost trial and error to be like, okay, I did that, but was that too much?
Yeah.
And then sometimes it is. And then you're like, I got to rein it back in.
Yeah. And I also learned what my brain feels. I don't know if this sounds weird, but I think you'll understand it. What my brain feels like overstimulated.
Yes.
So I didn't know with scrolling and social media. Now I can feel it's almost like a buzz where I'm like, okay, my nervous system is getting tapped and this is not good.
That's literally what I teach people to feel because majority, like this wasn't taught to us in high school or middle, like, and it should be like, this is something like I couldn't tell you all of the, state capitals. Maybe you think less of me because of that, but like, I don't give two shits. And that's not something I use on a regular basis in a day-to-day life, but like understanding how my brain functions and when you're getting that buzz or when you're getting dysregulated or being able to feel the difference between, I know I am heightened. Like it is okay that I am heightened. I know that I am heightened. I've been here before and I know the tools to get back down there. If you don't know that, there's so much fear of like, will I be here forever? And I feel crazy and I feel broken. And some of us just ignore it. Some of us just keep living that way, right? And having the empowerment to understand that you still can have it all, right? Like you have an incredible business. I have an incredible business. We both have children. We both have partners. We both have full lives, but we also have made time for ourselves to make sure that we, at the end of the day, are healthy, right?
Yeah, you have to choose to show up for yourself.
You do.
Even if it feels selfish.
You do.
And then once you start to experience the benefits of showing up for yourself, you realize when you are with your kids, when you are with your partner, you're actually there.
You're present.
Like, you're really there. And you can really enjoy it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rather than it just being like a whirlwind of like, oh my gosh, that year went by so fast. Oh my gosh, that like, okay, it's another day, right?
Yeah.
Tell everyone a little bit about Britsbarre, because we've talked so much about you and nervous system regulation, which, I could talk about that all day long. But tell everyone about it and what is different about it and why it works, and like boast for a little, if you will, for me, because if you don't, I will.
It really became what it is through my own experience with motherhood and my initial members' experiences and feedback. So when I launched, I was still in the boutique fitness mentality. And actually, I found this as a general public mentality of like, workouts need to be about an hour. A short workout at a studio is 45 minutes.
Yep.
So I thought my signature format, which I still have on there, but I actually film not so many anymore, would be like the headliner. My goal is really to create the experience like you get when you go take my class in studio, but you're at home, from like a beautiful studio setting to like all the vibes.
Yes.
And then I got into motherhood with a child who did not nap. If she did, it was like 10 minutes.
And then screaming
would
the rest
not
of the time.
lay on the mat for me to do a workout.
Right.
For 45, forget about it. I got my steps in motherhood because girlfriend, like if she was in the stroller, she was okay.
She was locked in.
We were
locked in, right?
Like she was content as long as she was on the go.
Moving.
Which, my daughter, it makes so much sense for her now.
Yeah.
So, and then I had these little express categories, but even in my head, I was like, okay, like some short, maybe someone would want a short workout. I don't know. Oh, little did I realize, like, I got into motherhood and I was with a bunch of clients and members who were also in new motherhood. And I don't have time for a 45-minute workout. Like I really don't have time to commute to a studio, commute back, find childcare and do a 45-minute workout 4 to 5 days a week, which is how often we need to be moving our bodies that often. So I started to play around with, okay, how can I get the same effective workout, but like sub 30 minutes for full body. So then my most popular format was really birthed after the launch of the virtual studio, which is a full body express, which is just a lot of compound movements. It's like, how can I be super efficient here with my time, but still hit full body? And then all my express categories, which are really more like arms, booty, legs. Those are the pockets for moms tend to be about 15, 20 minutes. And I just really pack in that 15 or 20 minutes. I will, sometimes when I go pop into a class, like the benchmark for me is like, if I don't feel like I got a better workout than I got at home in 15, 20 minutes, like that needs to be the kind of like the gold standard for my time.
I love that.
And that's really what's made the app so realistic. Because while it's lovely to pop into a studio class, and I actually didn't do that for about 5 years. I've recently started just kind of like as a date with myself, because it brings me back to like my pre-kid days, like just taking myself on a sweat date.
Yeah.
But like that's a couple times a month, maybe once a week if I'm really can juggle a schedule right. And like for our health, our wellness, mental health, physical health, like we need to be hitting that mat with resistance training multiple times a week. And for moms, like for most moms, is it really realistic to get in studio and be consistent?
Agreed.
That's where my app really fills that gap with all of my experience I've had teaching at top studios, training hundreds of instructors, and then really making it realistic for my own life, which is like my client's life. How can we be consistent? How can we support ourselves and also have a workout that's going to make us stronger, but also not depleted? And that's a key thing. Like you need so much energy in motherhood.
So right.
And that's a big mind shift set for people to really realize like a good workout doesn't mean I'm like dead on the mat, dripping in sweat. Like you can really work your muscles in a targeted way, build endurance, build strength without killing yourself. Because let's be honest, if you are killing yourself and have no energy after your workout, are you going to do that 4 times, 5 times a week?
Right.
No, we are trying to thrive in motherhood here. And then another really key piece of my app, through my own experiences, was postnatal support. So I really supported me through my pregnancy. As we mentioned, I was teaching on Zoom literally 3 days before I gave birth. So I really wanted to kind of seamlessly integrate those modifications into classes instead of being like, okay, you're pregnant, here's these classes over here. We're so much stronger than we realize, especially if you've been doing any kind of physical fitness up until pregnancy. How can I make that as seamless as possible where you keep moving, but then you have those core modifications within the classes? And bar for pregnancy, there's nothing better because it's endurance based. And what is labor? Like the ultimate endurance activity. So that's another key thing when it comes to like my app specifically, is I really wanted that postnatal.
And you got certified in that, right? Like you took extra training to make sure that, I mean, I think you already had the knowledge, but then you went above and beyond to make sure.
Yeah, I really wanted to have a specific certification for that. And I got that during my own pregnancy, which was really, really helpful. But then there's nothing like going through it yourself.
Sure.
Like there's no education you can get that can substitute for feeling that in your body. And then also the compassion that, at least I feel for like how hard it is. So that with like the pre and postnatal modification, also how I touched on earlier, just modifications in general. I had a lot of chronic body issues from my dance career. I have some that I'm still actually working through with a really amazing doctor. So that really influences how my classes function. While I'm known for some of the hardest classes you'll ever take.
Yes. I was going to say like, Brittany is talking about efficient 15, 20 minute, 30 minute, and she has big, like longer classes, but like that doesn't just mean, I'm going to just do it. This is like, holy shit. These are some holy shit classes. It's like, wow. Okay. Well, that was great. And okay, I feel like I did something, right?
Yeah. Balanced by the fact that in my head, I'm always like, okay, am I having a hip flare up?
Sure.
Am I having a neck issue? Like I've had ankle stuff, like I had knee stuff, I've had it all. So how can I, while we're having those like, wow, this is hard, there is always an option to take it down to where your body needs for that day. And that was really a skill set I learned teaching boutique fitness. We were teaching to all levels. So tailored to the screen. Like it could be anyone taking that class, right? So my classes are really for like the most advanced. I have a lot of actually bar instructors and bar studio owners. Like that's their workout.
Yes.
So it's really an honor to know that I'm moving with other people in my field.
Yes.
But then also people that have literally done no fitness in a long time.
Yeah.
Bar is so accessible in that way with the low impact. And now I've also integrated, as I approach my 40s, more strength training. I kind of say I'm like tricking my bar girls into doing strength training because we still move to the beat. Like there's that musicality that I think if you're drawn to bar or my workouts, like we want that dynamic. Like I don't want you to just tell me to do 8 curls.
Yeah.
Like let's do it to the beat of the music. Let's make it fun. But like, let's also bone density, blood sugar regulation, all of those things we need to start thinking about more as we age. So that's a kind of a newer offering that Britsbarre has now.
I love that. When I was doing Brittany's workouts, probably even during COVID, I have sent Brittany some videos where Eli is like, I got this. And he like has like the bands. He's got him on his head and like he's like pumping iron. And then we've done I love your stretch. Like I love it like before bed or like in the evening, and Eli will do that with me too. Yeah. And I've done them on most vacations because it's an app and I can turn it on whatever TV it's on. And my sister will do it with me. And I was in Colorado 2 years ago. And so I turned on your Aspen one because I was like, well, we're in the mountains. So like this will feel like we're doing it in the mountains. But there's just so many, you've worked so hard, like I said, to build this library, and there's something for everyone for sure in it.
I'm always thinking, how can I remove all barriers to moms having an excuse to not move their bodies?
I love that.
I'm like, I work standing only. You don't want to pull a mat out? You want no equipment? Go to the standing only category. Only like you're feeling like low energy or like say it lazy. Like we all have those days, If I'm honest, there's a lot of days that I don't actually feel like getting started to move my body, but mentally, like if you could say 15 minutes and I don't have to get off the mat, every single day that you can show up for yourself with movement, it compounds. It's like the nervous system regulation journey. And then the more you do it, the more you actually feel how you feel when you don't do it. And then you stop having to be so mentally disciplined because you know how you feel if you don't do it. So you're like, I don't feel like doing this today, but I know I'm going to feel better after. So all of these habits kind of build on themselves.
1,000%.
But yeah, if I could, the one thing I could like share or encourage moms is like, it doesn't have to be long to be effective, and also like shift your mentality around why you're showing up. If we can change, yes, we want the physical goals. I get it. But it usually isn't enough motivation if we're really honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
But having more energy, feeling good, those are easier to show up day in and day out than like, I want my tricep toned, right? Like those are the also side effects of showing up for yourself, that you're going to see those physical changes. But the mental, emotional part is just so powerful. And you don't have to overhaul your life.
Yeah.
But you do have to wake up every morning and be like, am I going to choose me today? Am I worth these 20 minutes that I'm going to have to be like, no, I can't play with you right now? And know that that's not selfish. That's you like allowing yourself to be your most vibrant self for your mental health and also physical health. Like as we age, there are consequences for not taking care of our body and then staying strong or getting strong.
Right.
So yeah.
Will you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yes. Britsbarre.com, Instagram at Britsbarre. So that's 1T. And I think we'll put it in the
Yes,
notes.
we will put it all in the notes.
And then if your community wants to experience my app, they can use code Dr. B at Britsbarre.com for a month free.
Okay. And we'll put that in the notes as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here and sharing all of this. And I love you so much. That was so fun. Please check Brittany out. She is, I don't even know how to explain it. She's the real deal. Like what Brittany says is what she truly means. And like, I pride myself on finding people or being surrounded by people who really are who they say they are, right? And there's just so much out there these days that it's so important to find people you can trust and believe in. And I'm so glad you came to my home and did this with me.
I'm so glad I haven't shared any of that kind of personal information before. So this felt like the right place and the right person. So
thank you for sharing that then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, until next time, XOXO, Dr. B.